But yeah, that you talked about earlier, that lifelong learner. It's important because I was feeling like, ooh, I don't know what to do. I don't know my job because it's changed so much. And am I the right person for the job? And the answer is, well, yes, I am. But how do I make myself better to support the organization and the mission and the what comes next? But helping them understand the why. You're not just shutting them down. It's not just like, oh, I don't have time for you. It's, let's reconvene because I just need a moment. And I think that's okay. That, I'm human. And
there's so many great nuggets in this conversation today. And I know that people are going to really appreciate it and value it. And they're definitely going to be able to take pieces that they can implement tomorrow, which I think is really important. Hey everyone, I'm excited to have Belinda Vierthaler with us today. Belinda is a master's level social worker, a licensed adult care home administrator, and she started her career working with older adults in an inpatient psychiatric setting. Her passion for maintaining the highest quality of life for older adults has spanned her entire career. Over the last 23 years, where she has worked as an assisted living executive director, a nursing home administrator, the state of Kansas, long-term care ombudsman, and educator. She is an advocate for individualized care, putting the person first and empowering people. Welcome to Next Level Leadership. I'm your host, Dana Weaver. And Belinda, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure to have you too. And your vast career has spanned over 23 years, but I have walked alongside of you for many, many of those years. And it's been really fun to watch you grow in your leadership and to teach others and to expand what others know in terms of leadership and person-centered care. Is there anything that I didn't say in the introduction that you want to add?
Other than currently in my role, I'm the Chief Development Officer over Green Living Innovations. And that, again, just kind of the way it's into the path that you take. Now, you never start out for me personally, never start out on the path that you end up taking. So the development role is something that's been interesting, certainly with leadership and just the new things that you learn about. So, yeah, that's the only thing I was thinking about. Popped up to my head as we're talking about. So, yeah.
You definitely need a lot of leadership experience to be a development officer, because that is no joke, especially in today's world.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so needed.
It is very needed. I'm glad that you're there doing it.
Well,
I wanted to start out with a question of, what would you say your philosophy of leadership is?
It's kind of changed over time, but I've always had and didn't always know the term to use for it, but that servant leadership. And really, I've always wanted to, kind of what can I do for others? And how do I help others? And how I kind of got started, and it was trying to help. I've always wanted to work with older adults, and how do I do that? And how do I help the people who are helping them? That's always been kind of my beginning point. So yeah, I would say just how do I serve others, and leading by example, I think, is also part of that. Doing the things and modeling the behaviors that I would like to see. It never being, I hate to say it, but too good to do some of the roles that I'm asking other people to do. So, up to my level of certification. I'm not doing things I shouldn't do, but, I remember one of my favorite moments was when I was opening a new nursing home on the Missouri side. And, you do everything that you need to do. And I had, that day had a hairnet on at one point because I was back in the kitchen helping. And one of the family members was like, "Oh, I really like your hair." And then later on that same day, one of the residents asked the nurse, actually, she was like, I want to talk to that cute little laundry aide. and it was me. But she's like, "Oh, you mean the executive director?" And yeah, I'll love to talk to her. So yeah, it's just those moments that really kind of solidify, you do what you need to do and you lead by example, and how do I help others? And I think, helping the people that we lead, by seeing us doing those things really does help.
I totally agree. And so glad that you brought that up because there's not enough leaders out there today willing to do those things. And so you talking about it and then leading by example with your team is so important. And I do love the story of the person wanting to talk to you because those are some of the best moments of working in our field, I think.
Yes, absolutely. And that was many years ago, but it's still just as fresh as it, just happened. So yeah, fun.
It made an impact on you. Yeah.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yes.
So who would you say has inspired your leadership along the way?
I've been lucky to have several mentors. And I, even when I was thinking about some of these questions, I wrote down kind of the people that have inspired me not always been like the right way. Like some of the people who have inspired me, I've learned, I think, a lot more from the wrong way, what not to do. Because I remember as a young social worker working on the Jerry Psych unit at the hospital, and the boss that I had at the time, he wasn't maybe so much of a leader, but more of a supervisor or manager. But I can remember making notes. I had a kind of like a journal, and I made notes of what not to do. When I'm in this role or when I'm a supervisor, don't do this and this. It was funny because I found it many years later and was like, wow, and luckily I wasn't doing those things. So I had definitely learned from it. But yeah, going back to the people that inspire me, so many people in my life, you have been such an amazing leader, and watching you grow too has been inspirational. Early in my career, I've had some other administrators that I think have done a really good job that I have learned from, and really just what's inspired me is their ability to say, well, I see this in you, because I don't always see the things in me that others do. And so just saying that to others, and I always use the example of, and I I just looked at in the camera. I had a friend, I went shopping in college, and so we were shopping, and a friend of mine said, "Oh, this is a Belinda sweater," and I remember thinking, "Well, what does that mean?" And she was like, "It has stripes," and I'm like, "What are you talking about? I don't like stripes." And you could see I do, and I didn't know it until she pointed it out. So that's the thing that I think some of those mentors have really done for me is I see that you're good at this, and it's like, wow, I didn't see that, and give me those resources to really hone in those skills. So, yeah, those I think are the inspiring people, and you know, even though he is a leader, my son is someone who's always inspirational to me. Just watching him grow and seeing the things that he does, and also wanting to make sure that I'm always making him proud, even though he may not know the things I do, just like making sure that whatever I do, like if I'm about to do something wrong, like, oh, if he sees this, he's not going to be proud of me or, embarrassed by me. Don't want to do that. So yeah, there's so many people that are inspiring to me and have really continue to inspire, because we need that. We need that continual inspiration. Sometimes, more than others. There are times in your life when you need that spark, that inspiration. So looking back even to those people, really helpful.
That's great. And, I love this story that you told about your son wanting to be, not the story, but wanting to inspire him. And I think it goes both ways. He inspires you, you turn around and inspire him, and you just keep feeding on each other, which is fantastic, because that can happen not at home, but it can happen at work too. And I'm sure that there are people that you work with that are inspired by you, or that you've worked with over the years, that look to you like I do and think, what a great leader. And, we've been able to learn from you as well. So I love the circle image, or coming full circle of inspiring each other.
Yeah, that is really cool. Yeah. I love it too, because my son actually works here at Evergreen, a very, very part-time. And it's just been fun to hear like the other side of it. And then having people tell him things that people that I didn't think even really liked me, they'll approach him and they're like, oh, your mom's great. And it's like, it's those moments that really, again, those are inspirational too. Like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know they knew my name,
Yeah.
much less. So yeah, that's been fun. It is kind of full circle too with that, just watching him come into my world and share that with them. And yeah, so it's fun.
I bet that has been really impactful for him, most definitely. So, you said something about people, you didn't think that they even knew your name, but they say great things about you. I think that's a really good point to bring up in terms of leadership, that we really don't know how we show up each day and how we affect other people. So when we show up in a good mood and we're having a great day, you just never know how that can inspire someone to have a good day. Or if we're having a bad day, which, happens in our field, how the way that you show up, even on your bad days, can inspire others to do better.
Yes. Yeah, it's cool to see. And again, hearing it from my son's perspective, like, oh, you left some goodies or something and someone was struggling and yeah, it is amazing the impact. You just don't know. And I talk about this all the time, that I would love to do like a celebration of life for someone when they're still alive. Hearing some of these amazing things that they've done. Because sometimes for some reason around the end of the year, I kind of get into a little like, I can't think of the term I want to use, but like, I don't want to say depressed, but kind of just those like, it's the end of the year and things are crazy. And but then like the beginning of the year is kind of, I feel like, inspirational again, like I'm awakened and I'm trying new things. So yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but I had that experience over like toward the end of the year, like, oh, it's the end of the year, and for some reason I don't want it to end. And even though holidays are fun, but yeah, just having those moments where you can pick other people up, and that then makes you feel better because you've helped them. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Maybe you're looking for the term funk, and a little funk. I think a lot of us get in a funk at that time of year.
yes, I definitely know. And then when you get out of the funk, you're like, oh, and then you just can kind of, the spark is back, and you can kind of be more creative. And yeah. So I've been excited because the last couple of weeks the spark is back and I'm out of the funk. So
Yay. Well, you're not alone, because there's a lot of people that get into that funk, because I think it's because there's too many things going on. I mean, we have so much we have to focus on around the holidays that I think it just naturally puts a lot of people into a funk, because it's a lot to juggle, especially for women.
yes,
I to juggle a lot.
with that. Yes. My office mate talked the other day about how women really are project managers. Especially with a household, with a family that you're running, and it's like, oh, we should have that on all of our resumes, right? Because we're good at constantly. My husband and son are texting me like, oh, when is my appointment? Well, I can't. I got to keep track of my own and yours. So yes, lots going on.
Very much so. And that, I think that is one of the skills that we have that helps us to rise, honestly. It's a project management thing, and ability to keep it going.
Right.
So
right.
You talked a lot about being a servant leader, but I know that there's something else that you're really passionate about, and that is person-centered care, person first. Specifically today, we're talking about nursing homes. And so, person-centered care can be in any level of care, any type of service, but that is really a big passion of yours. And I was wondering if you tell me a little bit about how you roll that into your leadership.
Yeah, I mean, it's individualized care, and so it's with my leadership, the way I look at it is, it's not just about the people we're serving, our customers, clients, residents, whatever we want to call them. It's the people who are doing the care also that we need to individualize. And I don't have to remind myself, we come up with policies and these things and procedures that impact the people who are providing the care. We also have to individualize that, and really look at. And we talk about end of year stuff, like looking at benefits and, individualizing that and really, trying to make sure that when we're asking someone to provide individualized care, that we're also making sure that we're seeing them as individuals, putting the person first. And that doesn't matter if it's the resident or the staff member, that we're really putting them at the center, because we can't do our jobs well if we don't have the people who are closest to the residents, that feel supported and safe and secure and loved. So, we definitely try to, with the person-centered care, try to think of ourselves as a family, because we really are. We spend oftentimes more time here, with this family than we do with our own, blood relations. So, how do we make it better for each other? And, just that individual thing. It's not just, it's not just 135 staff. It's a community, it's a family, and really getting to understand and knowing that. I think one of the ways that I've been able to be a good leader is that to understand that we're humans. We can't. And I remember, and he was a great mentor to me. One of my first bosses that I worked for when I started working in the nursing home. He was a great guy, and I learned a lot from him. But he, I don't think, had the empathy that I had always wanted to make sure that in my leadership role wanted to have. And he said to me, you come in, you get your work done, and you go home. You don't get attached. And I remember as a master's level social worker, I'm like, no, this isn't the place for me then. In kind of the idea of when you come into work, you take your emotions off like a coat, and you hang it up behind you, you leave it, and you go do your work. And it's just, and I remember, especially as a young female administrator, okay, gotta, take my emotions off at the door and leave them. And that's how I tried, I think for a couple of years, tried to do it. And it just wasn't the right thing for me, because we are emotional beings. And so, we have to lead with that and understand that the people that we work with also are emotional beings, and understand that, what can we do to help? How can I be here as a resource to you? How can, is there some, education you need, or do you just need an hour to go do something, or, a day off, or whatever it is? Just trying to understand individuals, no matter what. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's your boss telling you to just try not to get too attached. I can see where that comes from, because over time, there's so much that we deal with in this field, caring for people, that it can become very overwhelming.
Yes.
And that's a path that one can take. But another path that one can take is the path that you're talking about, and getting to know people a little bit better and help them navigate that, because that person wouldn't have been able to help people navigate showing up and caring for the older people very well. So I had a boss once that said, we're people taking care of people. It's not going to be perfect. And we hold ourselves to this expectation that we all have to be perfect, but it's not reality. And once we allow ourselves that grace, like you're talking about, I think that gives us a whole new way of caring for people, or a whole new focus on caring for people. And yeah, I'm not sure where I was going with that either.
Yeah, well, and it's crazy. It is to be able to sustain, being a leader in this industry or this profession. You have to give yourself grace, and I have to remind myself that. In fact, I do a lot of CEUs saying to people, make sure the stuff I'm saying is not usually new information. It's just reminders. Give yourself grace, because otherwise you can't sustain it. And I think that's what happens to me at the end of the year. It's like all of the years of stuff, the whole year of stuff is kind of building up. And then I remind myself at the beginning of the year, give yourself grace, because you can't do it all at once. You can't, the social worker me, you have to partialize, break it down, because you can't you can't climb the mountain all at, in 1 minute. You gotta take some time. So definitely sustain yourself, give yourself grace.
Do you think that you have a special superpower because you are a social worker and administrator? You think that makes a difference in how you lead?
I do. I think that being a social worker has helped everything. It just helps me in relationships, and I really want to, and I think with resident centered care too. I always want to know the person. I can remember as a kid, I was always asking questions to people, and usually older people, because I loved hanging around like my grandma and all of her friends. So I'd ask lots of questions. When I was younger, I was being nosy, and then when I became a social worker, it's a social history. So it's an assessment that I'm getting to know people, and I've always done that. So yeah, I do think it's very helpful. I'd love to think I had superpowers. I'd love to have a cape. That'd be fun. But I know I'm going to get one. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to get a red cape. But I do think it helps in everything that I do. Every role that I've had, it helps because I want to know, I want to understand, like when someone's getting mad at me, oftentimes family members in a nursing home get upset, maybe not just because of something that we've done. It could be their guilt and other things playing into that. And so then I think about that, where are they coming from? Why are they yelling at me? And I've gotten to the point now as I've aged, I will say to them, it's harder for me to be able to help you when you're yelling at me. And then some of those tactics like lowering my voice so that then they kind of calm down. But again, trying to understand where they're coming from, getting upset because they're an advocate for their loved one really helps that moment instead of like, oh my God, I didn't do anything. Why are you yelling at me?
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely think that being a social worker has helped for sure.
That's awesome. I think combining other, like being a social worker, being a nurse, being something else and combining it with being an administrator, I think really does help because it gives you a more well-rounded perspective. But specifically social workers having that background is, I think it really does make you more empathetic.
It does. Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting as I think some people that become social workers are just kind of naturally that way, but also, through education, my master's was all about learning about me, or not all about, but it was mostly learning about me and how I interact with the world and how I accept the world and all of those things. So that really helps in leadership to know how you interact with the world.
Absolutely. Not all of us really take that into consideration. What would you say are some tips that leaders who are watching this today could take back with them and implement to improve their leadership?
I think some things like doing what you feel is right, being able to sleep at night. Throughout the day when you have to make decisions, I will pause, and I think now, especially because I'm not the administrator of record, I have more time to pause and process. But I actually had a period of time where I was the interim administrator, so I went back to that. Like I've got to make quick decisions, but I still take that second to, am I going to be able to sleep at night because of this decision? I think stay true to yourself. Be transparent. That's something that I learned early in my career as an administrator. There were some, actually it was a fatal med error and just all that ensued with that. Throughout I just was transparent, we made mistakes and here's what we did. And here are the things that we did to make sure this never, ever happens again. So I've always felt like transparency was an important part of being a leader. And I think sometimes that, people come to you as a leader and they think that you're an expert on everything. And it's like, oh no. And so I will say to people, you know what, that is not in my wheelhouse, but let me figure out a resource that I can get you, or and even again, talking about the emotions. This is again, something I teach in some of my classes that, and I did it in real life when I was struggling, had a moment where it was just like, I was overwhelmed. And then, it's like, I can't take one more problem on. And then you have a staff member that comes to you with, oh my gosh, the sky is falling. Can I ask you a question? And I would say to them, you know what, give me a half an hour and we'll come back and meet because you're not going to get the answer you want right now. because I know what you're going to ask, or, even asking the question now, you're not going to get the answer you want, but let me have a few minutes, or, 30 minutes, and we'll come back and we'll sit down and talk about it. Because I want you to get what you want, but I can't at this moment. But helping them understand the why, that you're not just shutting them down. It's not just like, oh, I don't have time for you. It's, let's reconvene because I just need a moment. And I think that's okay. That, I'm human, and I can't be all things to everyone. And to be the person that you want to work with, be that person that you want to come to work with and see, and can be inspiring and challenging at the same time. And, challenge you, not be a challenging person to work with, but I love sometimes being challenged, like, ooh, I don't know the answer to that. Let me think about that. So yeah, I think stay true to yourself, though, is one of the most important things, the advice that I would give, because I think there have been times in my career where I haven't. I think especially my time at the state, and there were some things, especially with lobbying, where I'd have to change completely the way I did things or thought about things. And then I felt that I didn't sleep at night well. So I'm like, well, what is it? And it's because I, had to change who I was in order to kind of change another group's thinking. And it's like, well, that's not me. That's not how to work for me. So yeah, I think did I answer your question? Kind of went off on a little tangent there.
No, you did answer my question, most definitely. And it was refreshing, honestly, because just going back to who you are and staying true to yourself is so important. And it's not taught in leadership courses generally. We're talking more about transparency these days, and that's a good thing. But staying true to who you are is a fantastic tip that I hope everybody takes from.
Absolutely.
And when you find yourself in situations like you said you were at the state where you couldn't be true to yourself, would you do anything differently now that you look back over that time in those moments of not being true to yourself?
Yeah. I think for one thing, I was younger, and so I definitely have learned a lot since then, and more, I guess, making sure I'm more confident in my abilities, and again, who am I, and do I feel comfortable in this moment? Because I remember just feeling conflicted, but I didn't, know why. So, I think I would have said, okay, let's slow it down a little bit, and just feeling comfortable with that, because that's something newer for me in the last probably I'd say the last like less than a decade that I've done that. Like, okay, let's slow down. Let's not rush into a decision. There are moments when you have to do that, but being able to say, let's step back and take a minute.
Fantastic. It occurs to me as we're talking, you and I are both not only nursing home administrators because we both have the license, but we've also kind of turned into educators as time has gone on. And because we're educators, that naturally makes us lifelong learners, I think, because we're always interested in learning more. And tell me, and this is my thing right now. For this month, my theme is being a lifelong learner. And I think sometimes we get to a point in our career where we just stop and we coast because we know we might retire in a few years or whatever, or we're just not as inspired as we used to be. So, what advice would you have for seasoned executives who are kind of at that point and they're not as inspired? They'd like to find the spark, but they just need a little bit of a little bit of energy, a little bit of inspiration.
Yeah, I think my suggestion would be to kind of reflect on the times in your career where you did have the spark and you did have the energy, the vibrancy that you would like, and then what was going on at that time. What were you doing? What was there a project? Was it a team? Was it a company? Or, what was it, the organization that you were really, that you enjoyed about that time? And then how can you recreate it? Maybe not the company, but maybe, maybe it's something in the role that you were doing at the time that you something new you were introducing. Because and that's the reason I bring it up, because I love that, bringing something new, something exciting, a new process or a project that you can kind of get excited about. So making sure you have those in your life, and if you don't, then I think reaching out to others. And I know there was a period of time where I felt like I was so busy I couldn't go to the conferences, and like I was just teaching, so I wasn't able to go out and get the education, which is funny. I know I did a lot of online stuff, but just recently have started going back to conferences, and oh my gosh, it's amazing to me. Even if you find some of the speakers aren't as interesting, just really being around other administrators, and even people that not just administrators, but other people that work in the profession, and just hearing, not only being validated in that, gosh, there's a lot of stuff that's going on right now that's not maybe so great, but here's what we've tried, and it's like, oh, that's exciting. Maybe that exact thing won't work for us, but how can we tailor it to our organization so that it would work? So, I think the networking and making sure you get out and just talk to other humans, because sometimes I know we get stuck in that vacuum as the administrator that's like, I've been doing this a long time. I got this. I know this. But it's amazing what you can learn from others. And just, that energy that you can reconnect with when you're out and seeing some of those things and being validated, and it's good stuff. So find that thing, and then, find that if that spark of that project comes up, then bringing it back to your organization, I think is great.
That's awesome. That's very good advice for the seasoned executives, because really we're created for community, right? So learning from each other definitely keeps that spark going.
Absolutely. Yes. We can definitely learn from each other. And again, sometimes learn what not to do, but we're still learning.
Yes, exactly. The learning comes in many different forms.
Yeah.
So we're kind of coming to the end of our interview now. Is there anything that you wish I would have asked today that I didn't?
Some things I just kind of thought about, and I actually jotted some notes down. I noticed I didn't mention it, but some of the things to remind even like seasoned or newer leaders, don't procrastinate too much. That's something that I used to do. I used to be so bad at it. And then the anxiety that comes with that, knowing that that's still on your to-do list and that kind of hanging over you. So I think that's something really important to not, and sometimes it's okay to procrastinate a little bit, and then really learning about conflict resolution and within your organizations, and even just your personal life, like just making sure that those conflicts are resolved, I think is a huge thing in being a good leader and helping with that. Not only recognizing it, that there's a conflict, and then addressing it instead of just hoping that it goes away, that you actually sit down and work with the individuals, or go to if it's you, go to the person and say, hey, this happened. Let's talk about this. So, yeah. And the one thing, the other day, I met with someone that early in my career, I was her supervisor. Actually, the first assisted living I ever ran. And she said, and it's been years. That's probably 23 years since I started there. She said that I said to her, it's not about everybody liking you, because she was also was a lead nurse and was a supervisor for others, and it really stuck with her that I said, not everybody's gonna like you, and you're not gonna like everyone. We have 135 people in our organization, and I don't like all of them, but I can separate that they do good work. And so I think that's important as a leader, to be able to see that, maybe I don't, appreciate all of their ideals and things, but, they do great work, and I can separate the two. So just a couple of things I thought about.
Absolutely. I'm glad that you threw those out there, because they're three very important things. Do you have any do you have any pointers on how not to procrastinate?
Um, no, other than just do it. Like the Nike commercial says, just do it. And I know that now that I'm older, I am more forgetful. So I think I procrastinate less because I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to do it right now, or I'm gonna forget.
Gotcha.
So yeah, and I want to make sure that I remember, like the conversation. So I'm going to go and do the action plan from the conversation or meeting, whatever, quickly, because otherwise I'm not. Even if I take notes and I go back, I'm going to be like, well, what did I mean by that? So it's really just from um, from being not doing the right, or being kind of found to not be doing the right thing, that it's kind of pushed me to like, oh, I'm going to stay on top of these things and not procrastinate, because I also don't always do the work that I would be proud of when I'm procrastinating, and I'm doing it the night before or the hour before the meeting's happening. And then I'm passing it out to a group of people that, I respect their opinions, and I'm giving them this yucky work. So that doesn't feel good.
Yeah,
So yeah.
that's great.
It's
Great point.
yeah, just to prevent you from feeling bad, is my best way to not procrastinate.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good point. So I want you to tell us a little bit more, kind of in this final part of the conversation. Tell us more about the organization that you work for, and I know you haven't brought it up, but you also you're the executive director of Gertie, and
Yes.
what that is and what that stands for, because that way we can learn a little bit more about what you teach.
Yeah. So when I first started here, Evergreen Living Innovations, I started about 7.5 years ago. I started out just overseeing Gertie, which is growing with evergreen resources and transforming innovation. And it was really Gertie was built just on the basis of evergreen communities, best practices. And then how do we not only teach our staff to be resident centered, but also then to help other organizations be more resident centered. So, we used to go out and provide education across the state on how to be more resident centered. Back pre-pandemic, we haven't done any traveling since 2020. So yeah, so that's really where Gertie started many years ago, really just to help push our profession forward to be more resident centered. And I think that Evergreen has done a really great job over the years of being resident centered. So they, felt like they should help others. So that's how I started, and it just kind of blossomed, I guess, maybe blossomed. It taken a different path, starting from only doing education, and I shouldn't say only, but that was my focus, was the education. And now Gertie is just online. We're only doing online CEUs and operators course. And now we're, for me personally, my role has taken different aspects. So, I oversee all of the marketing and all of the fundraising, which is an interesting thing. I've never been a fundraiser, but it's kind of one of those things, you do a good job on a fundraising event and suddenly you're a fundraiser. Yeah. So, that's how it goes in these, especially in a small nonprofit. You did well. We're going to give you more work. Yeah. So it's been interesting in overseeing grants. Yeah. So one of the things that I think part of my December funk, because I've been analyzing a lot, was really just that, we're starting a capital campaign, which is something that I've never done. And it was like, it's kind of one of those that I feel inept and I don't like that feeling. So I took an online fundraising course, an 8-week course. Now, talk about not procrastinating. The course actually ended and I'd only done 2 weeks. So I had to do 6 weeks last weekend. So don't procrastinate, because that was a lot to do in one weekend. But it was kind of fun learning it all at one time. But yeah, that you talked about earlier, that lifelong learner, it's important, because I was feeling like, ooh, I don't know what to do. I don't know my job, because it's changed so much. And, am I the right person for the job? And the answer is, well, yes, I am. But how do I make myself better to support the organization and the mission and the what comes next. So yeah, so the getting the education was helpful, and then reminding myself to reach out to others. I just did that yesterday. Someone said that he was a fundraiser, and I was like, oh my gosh, can I just have a half an hour of your time? And just asking him lots of questions. So yeah, that's fun. And that totally was not what you asked me, but yeah, so evergreen. But that is, it's part of, my role. And I think just as a journey for anyone, kind of taking a different path, and you're not sure where that path is leading you, but, it can really lead you to spaces that you never knew you'd love and enjoy. So make sure you don't shut those doors when asked or voluntold to do something. If you're afraid of it, figure out what can you do so that you're not afraid of it.
Oh, there's so many great nuggets in this conversation today. And I know that people are going to really appreciate it and value it. And they're definitely going to be able to take pieces that they can implement tomorrow, which I think is really important. If people want to get a hold of you for any reason, learn more about Gertie or Evergreen, or how you become a fundraiser, development officer, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so we have several websites that you can go to: www.gertie.org, GERTI.org, and www.ecojc.org are our websites. But gosh, I'd always love to email me, Belinda V at gertie.org. I'm not someone who loves to talk on the phone, which I'm finding that's bad for a fundraiser. So I'm going to work on that. So my phone number, you can always reach me at 913-477-8242. And I will try to pick up the phone unless I have my mouth full of food. And that's the only time I don't pick up the phone now.
Oh, that's awesome. So, I mean, we come from the generation where we talked on the phone all the time as teenagers. So, and we were actually tethered to a wall, now that I think about it.
Yeah.
And so maybe talking on the phone is as exciting as it was back then for us, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. It's so funny. I think about it often because I really dislike talking on the phone. I would so much rather meet in person. It's not that I don't like to talk to people, because I really do. But I'd rather do a Zoom or something. But so for some reason, talking on the phone, it just, you can't see it all, the facial expressions, and yeah, that I really look to that more so these days to see how people are responding to what I'm saying. Because it's like, oh, did I just say the wrong thing? You don't know on a phone because it's just dead silent. You're like hoping that they're still awake and listening or something.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll make sure that we put all of the information that Belinda just provided in the notes so that you can contact her if you're interested in learning any more. And there's so many big ideas that I'm taking away from this conversation. And it's just fantastic to be in your space right now, Belinda, and have you speak to our audience. And I always enjoy spending time with you. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Dana. I appreciate you.
Sure. Absolutely. And thank you to everyone who spent time with us today. And I'm sure that you've gained many takeaways, just like I have, from the conversation. And we'd love to know what those are in the comments, actually. So if you have a chance, put them in the comments and post questions as well. So if you have questions of Belinda or myself, feel free to put them in there, and I will make sure that I go in and answer them. And I'm sure Belinda would too.
Absolutely.
As we get this up and going. And if you find value in these conversations or any of the interviews that we've had in Next Level Leadership, I'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe and then share with your friends and let other people know about the great leaders that we not only have in our field, but that are out there showing us how to lead. So thank you very much for being with us, Belinda, and all of our listeners today and our viewers. And until next time, we'll see you then.